what I'll do today is take you through a demo of the tool, explain how it works, and hopefully pick up some of the sort of case studies and things like that we've seen through all the organizations that have been through this tool so far. So what we're going to do first is obviously sign up. I'm going to create a new account, and we will send out the link to this page afterwards. To get the discount, you'll need to sign up through the Race Equality Matters link that will be sent out immediately after this. So I'm going to create a new company called Mark's Pet Shop, which obviously one's ability to type is directly proportional to the number of people watching. Mark Holt, mark at petshop.com. And this is just caveat, this is a demo environment, not the live environment, because I don't like creating lots of random companies in the live environment. So hopefully it works, but if it doesn't, I'll explain why. So we set up we create an account. And the tool is designed to be super easy to use. So you can see we talk about the wiggly green buttons. As we go through, the wiggly green buttons will tell you what to do next in order to create your survey. So let's go. This is the home page. And the wiggly green button is saying we need a little bit more information about your organization. So let me just click onto that. You can see it's got the organization Mark's Pet Shop. What we find is that organizations typically call themselves something else internally. If you're Race Equality Matters, you probably, well, Javed would be known as REM, R-E-M. So you would put that in. So if I was known as MPS, Mark's Pet Shop, just a nice way of making sure employees feel confident when they're answering the questions. We've had some organizations with very long names and it gets a bit complicated. You set your approximate number of employees. Now, this is a very successful pet shop. So I've got 1,000 employees. And we can choose our industry. Something that we can talk about offline is there is new legislation coming from the FSA and PRA about people's need to, and those are the regulators who regulate financial services organizations. The diversity tool supports all the requirements of the FSA and PRA in reporting diversity and inclusion for your organization. So if you're in the insurance sector, banking, financial services, that'll be relevant for you. So I'm going to just choose retail as my industry, and because it's kind of fun, I'm going to just add a logo, and there we go. You can see my little pet is at the top right-hand corner. Now it's saying the next stage is to create diversity questions. So we think of the world in two different sets of questions. We ask diversity questions, which are questions about people. They're about individuals. They include the 9 protected characteristics, etc. So those are demographic questions. Then we ask questions that we call lenses, and those lenses are questions about your organization and about your processes. And by combining those two things together, we can start to say this demographic experiences the organization in this way. Hopefully it'll become clear as more clear as we go through. So I'm going to create the default set of questions. And these questions have been through thousands of surveys now. They've constantly been iterated. So one of the things that Javed was mentioning up front is that oftentimes organizations spend a huge amount of time trying to figure out what the right questions are. Nobody wants to cause offense. The nice thing about this is the tool, and we've worked with REM on this as well, the tool has a default set of questions that are actually pre-expert approved to be able to be used in your organization. So let me create the default set. And you can see that we break the questions down into various categories. And what we also do is we highlight protected characteristics. So you can see that there will be some rows with a little protected characteristic badge next to them. So if I open core demographics, we can see we've got 5 protected characteristics in there straight away. Age, racial characteristics, gender identity, etc. And everything in the platform is changeable. So we can edit these questions to our heart's content. If I want to change the how old are you, because actually I've not got so many people in one particular section, I can just delete a row and I can make the change there. Save the question, and now you can see it's made the change. So everything can be changed. All the questions can be deleted if you want to, and you can add your own questions. So you can click new and add any question that you want that's appropriate for your organization. So we looked at core demographics. We ask questions about physical and mental diversity. So we look at neurodiversity, which is super interesting. We ran a survey with an organization who discovered that 50% of their networks team was neurodiverse. That's a super interesting stat. Really loved that. They actually made changes to their working practices to have meeting-free Tuesdays and Thursdays to better accommodate the neurodiverse community in that team. So that was an actionable, real change that happened in the organization based on the data that they gathered here. And Javed was mentioning the survey results saying most organizations are very good at capturing the protected characteristics, but actually anything beyond that tends to be a lot harder. So if we keep going down, not only do we look at neurodiversity, we also look at social mobility. Look at whether people were eligible for free school meals, what class they consider their parents to be, whether they attended university. And again, you can get rid of any of these questions if you don't feel they're appropriate, or make any changes that you choose. We look at people's work background to basically say, of the people in the room, are we getting a diverse set of opinions, or is it the same group of people that we just keep hiring from pet shops? You know, I'm just hiring other people from pet shops, and I've never hired anybody from anywhere else, and so I'm not getting diverse thought in the room. We look at home life in particular. Caring responsibilities is not a protected characteristics, but it absolutely should be. And we look at religion and people's attitudes towards alcohol and diet. So those are the diversity questions about people. If I go, you can see the little wiggly green button is saying I should go back to my dashboard. Now we look at the questions about the organization and about your organizations. So we create the default set again. Slightly different set of categories here. We look at tenure. So are we recruiting a more diverse cohort more recently, or is it fairly static through the periods? Obviously, you can change the offices to whatever is appropriate for your organization, look at departments, etc. And then we ask questions about things like about inclusion. So have we got diverse interview panels? This one is a nightmare. So many organizations that we run surveys with come back and we discover that most of the people that are doing their heavy interviewing are white, and most of the people doing their heavy interviewing are male. And it's been very consistent through the, which is a really actionable statistic again. The team can do something about that. So we look at who's representing our organization externally, who's talking to our organization internally. And then we look at bias. We ran a survey with an organization. We discovered that the 10% of the organization they promoted the previous year, every one of them was a man. In an organization that's 30% female. Absolutely, there is bias at play there. And then equity. So creating specific questions to say, should we be creating potentially a mentorship scheme for one particular demographic because they're underrepresented? And then most of the questions here are explicitly designed to be objective questions. You can, it's a fact whether you've received an employee award, whether you've received formal training. Then we ask a whole bunch of subjective questions, again, to tease out people's experience of the actual organization. I use the example quite a lot because it was really shocking. We had one organization where the white community said racial slurs are not tolerated in this organization, and the non-white community said racial slurs are tolerated in this organization. So that's the power of this kind of data, being able to, if you just aggregate that up, you say, oh, okay, well, 75% of people say racial slurs are not tolerated. But actually, by breaking it down by different demographic, you start to get an understanding of people's lived experience. So if I go back to the dashboard, it's now saying, got to actually create a survey. So I'll pop in here, create a survey, and it's asking me to do a bunch of things, to edit the text of the invitation that we send out, so that it's in your company tone of voice, so that it feels sensible for your organization when they receive it. And then we send reminder emails to anyone that hasn't completed the survey, a period 7 days after the start of the survey. You can change the colors, etc. And then what I'm going to do now is just test the survey. So I can click here. This is a test. So confirm. And this is what the survey would look like for a participant. Participation rates and lack of trust were cited as very key issues with this kind of tool. And so we work really hard on the homepage or the landing page for participants to explain why they should trust us to gather this data. And we do a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure it is absolutely secure. I mean, my background is working for banks, so I'm pretty good on internet security. And also we do a lot of work to make sure that we don't create any kind of GDPR footprint for your organization. So if you were to run a SAR, absolutely nothing would show up. So let me go. And you can see, again, the survey, it's very, very easy. How old are you? Okay, I'm a bit older than that. Shh. I'm white. I'm a man. Yes. Generally, people have talked about survey fatigue being an issue. On average, it takes people 4 minutes to complete this survey. That's across all the surveys that we've run. So survey fatigue is definitely an issue. But actually being able to say to the organization, it'll take you about 4 minutes to complete this. Most people can find 4 minutes to spend on something as important as this. So let me pop back to, let me close that tab that was doing the test. And what I can also do is I can view some sample results, and Javed has very helpfully got some sample results behind him on the on his screen. I will click on there, and you can see it saying sample all over it. And we're going to just change it to a pie chart because a lot of people like those. And you can see these are some real results from a real survey that we ran. Obviously, I've anonymized them, but you can start to see. So here's the diversity. We can start to see what percentage of our organization is male, female, racial characteristics, age, etc., etc. And you can see all of those are now represented in here. You can also look at the lenses that we spoke about. So the things about your organization, we can start to see how long have you worked here, which office do you work from, days per week in the office, etc., etc. The real power of this tool, we think, comes from combining the lenses and the diversity characteristics. So if I just flip back to showing it as a bar chart, what I can do is I can overlay on here the lenses. So the questions about your organization. So if I look at the interviews question that I mentioned earlier, if I scroll down a little bit, and you can see that what the system has done here is it's ghosted out some of the lines and it's highlighted some of the lines for you. So it's trying to give you some insights. We could call it artificial intelligence, but that would be a bit that would be a bit keen. What it's trying to do is guide you towards areas that might require a little bit more diving into. So we can see here, we're saying, how would you describe your racial characteristics? So we can see that, let's call it 75% of the organization is white. And then we are combining that data with how many candidates do you interview each month. So we can see that for the no interviews and for 1 to 5 interviews, it's broadly in line with our overall diversity. But when we start to look at the people doing most of the interviewing, so 6 to 10, or basically more than 6 interviews, every single one of them is white. And when we look at gender identity, we see that every single one of them is a man. Which is then, you can now ask the next question, is that okay? Should we be doing something about that? Should we be changing that? And that is really the platform. As I mentioned, it's designed to be super easy to, it's basically nagging me now to say customize the emails. It's designed to be super easy to use. I love Javed's expression that he was talking about this morning, launch a survey by tea time. If you just work with the questions that are there, which have gone through all these iterations, and you just need to change a few pieces of information, and you can launch a survey super easily, 15 to 20 minutes. You'd be able to get something out there, gather some real data, and then think about what you might do from there.